All right, what is up, fam? I am coming at you today with my Bloomin' Rage spoiler-free review. This is a relatively new game, so I want to give you all a chance to hear what I have to say about it without worrying about spoilers. So I will probably, a week from now, release a different video that has got all the spoils and all the good stuff in it, kind of more in line with the kind of reviews that you all are used to seeing on this channel. But like I said, I wanted to give everyone the chance to play the game on their own and experience it for themselves before I go full bore and tell the world what's going on. So generally speaking, in like a Life is Strange title, I will usually judge them by three major components. That's going to be story, music, and kind of like I call it the art of the game, like how it looks visually. I will probably move away from like the traditional art sense on this one, and I will move, well no, I'll still look at art, but I'm going to add an additional one. I'm going to look at characters as well. I feel like Bloomin' Rage, especially the characters, are a pretty big part of the story, so I think it's a pretty big deal to make sure that we...
Mud, it's fine. And I gotta go to the movie palace. My rental's due.
Talk about that as well. So jumping right into it, we're going to tackle story first. That's just usually where I start with these. And the story of Bloomin' Rage in terms of tape one is a little bit rough by my standards. It's very clear that dontnod wanted to give us plenty of time with these characters and get to know these characters.
Last chance for scoops!
I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream!
Nor.
Really get to experience them and really kind of fall in love with these characters, which I see where they're going with that. It's just a little too slow for my taste. I could have used some more tension, give us something else going on in the story, something to look forward to outside of just meeting the characters, because after about the first hour or two, just meeting the character really started to kind of drag on for me. Admittedly, I don't know where the story is going, and that is both a good and a bad thing.
Where'd you hide it, fluff butt?
Like, a predictable story is obviously a problem, but a story that seems to have no direction is almost as much of a problem. Like, they allude in the trailers that something weird, mysterious, supernatural, spooky might happen, but it's very vague as to what that is, and even after having played the entirety of the first tape, it's still very vague as to what's going on. And like I said, again, I really have no idea where the story is headed. I'm like, okay, I experienced tape one, I wonder what's going to happen in tape two, which is like, you want your audience to be curious about what's going to happen as the story continues, but you also want them to have an idea of like what could happen. Like in this, I'm like, okay, so these things happened and they did this thing and it ended in this whole way, and kind of like, now what kind of story do we have left to tell? It's not like there's some lingering mystery that I still really need to have solved. There really is no mystery to it whatsoever. And so I'm very kind of medium lukewarm on the story right now. I feel like most everything about this game is still better than Double Exposure, but story-wise, I've yet to really been blown away. I don't think that it's going to get any worse from here, not to say that it's bad by any sense. I think tape two will shed some critical light on the story and help piece things together and get me being like, oh, okay, like I get where we're going here. Tape one really just felt like getting to know the characters, which is, again, is fine and crucial if the characters are going to play such an important role that you really need to be attached to them as a player, as a viewer, as whoever you are to this experience. But I still would have benefited from a little bit more tension, give me something to latch onto and to want to kind of see more of. With that being said, I feel like story leads directly into the characters, so that just seems like the natural next place to talk about here. The characters are all very strong, which doesn't surprise me in the world of Don't Nod. Don't Nod does great characterization. And so especially with the four main girls, Swan, Kat, Autumn, and Nora, they're all done very well. They're all very good characters that feel like their own individuals. And I do care about all of them. And there's times in this game where you're hanging out with these characters and just doing your thing, and they do these silly, goofy, in-character kinds of things. And I do find myself legitimately laughing and enjoying at the things that they are doing. So I do say that the characters are done really well. Swan especially is like a total sweetheart. I really enjoy any moment that I'm spending playing as Swan. She's very refreshing because I feel like the aggressive kind of tomboy bully girl is the in kind of stereotype for most women in media these days, and Swan is not that. She's very passive, she's very kind of shy, she's super sweet. Her voice actress does a wonderful job making her just up to be like an absolute sweetheart. So Swan is good, she's a breath of fresh air.
Whoa, got somewhere to be, little guy.
Really enjoy her, especially as a perspective character. Kat is good. She stands out on her own. She's definitely strong-willed, strong-headed. She's the bold one of the group, which fits with her also being the shortest, because like short people tend to have that like extra gumption, like they got to prove something. And so she's got a really solid character on her. Autumn is kind of reserved. I would say she's the most, I don't know if boring's the right word for her character. She's the least outlandish of the characters, if that makes sense. Like Swan sticks out as like the shy, sweet girl. Kat sticks out as the strong, bullheaded, charging in, doing stuff kind of person. And Autumn is kind of just there. She's more business oriented, and you get a lot of that out of her in the modern interactions when like you see her and she's more focused on interacting with her boss and making sure everything is going well in the office, more so than this reuniting, gosh, I can't talk, reuniting with their friends 27 years later. And that really kind of paints a better picture for who she is. Nora is a super fun character. I really enjoy a lot of the scenes that Nora is in. I have heard complaints from other people saying that she feels a bit like a stereotype, and I totally kind of get where they're going with that. She is kind of your stereotypical like punker girl from the 90s, and she drinks and she parties and she does all the things and she checks all of those boxes. Though Nora is done in such a way that doesn't necessarily bother me, I can see and I can acknowledge these things that people are saying about her, but it's not in such a way that I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go with another character like this or whatever. So she doesn't bother or annoy me in any way. In fact, I enjoy a lot of her goofy Nora-isms, as I might call them. And so with the core four, like you've got a solid core four bunch of characters. The only two other characters that are really heavily featured so far in the game are the two bully characters, and that is Kat's older sister Dylan and her boyfriend Corey. And for as wonderfully done as the four main characters are, I do feel like the bully characters are a bit weak.
Come on, babe. I bet this is like the longest conversation this girl's ever had with a guy.
Especially when I can dive more into this in my spoiler review, but there is a point in the game more towards the end where the bully characters are more heavily featured and you get to see like another side of them. And I feel like if their characters were written stronger than they are now, that other side of them would really work. But like the first time that you meet Dylan, especially, is a really strong interaction between her and Swan. And then Corey rolls up and he's just kind of And it's funny, I've seen other playthroughs where this conversation goes very different ways, but I chose a pretty peaceful route as Swan, and Corey seemed kind of neutral on the whole interaction between Swan and Dylan. And then it just like quickly turned on a dime, and now all of a sudden he's bullying me. And so that seemed a bit jarring, especially like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like, as a guy rolling up on that situation, if my girl's getting into it with some other girl, like I'm largely going to stay out of it. Like Dylan is like, oh, aren't you gonna teach her a lesson? You need to show this girl who's boss. And I was like, she wasn't beefing with me, she was beefing with you. And like, you two ladies should be able to sort this out. Like, I'm not gonna get involved. And that was kind of the vibe that I got from Corey when he first rolled up on that situation. And then, like I said, the thing very quickly turned on a dime. And then every Corey interaction after that, he is just like this blind, basic bully character who the developers clearly want us to hate.
I'm not stupid.
You know what? I hate ugly girls like you.
And he feels evil for the sake of being evil, but then at the end of the game, him and Dylan have different interactions with the characters which make you feel differently about them. And then it just really shines a light on the writing of those characters, as it's like, okay, now Dontnod is just writing them the way that they want and or need us to feel about them for the sake of the story in that particular moment. So like in the beginning of the game, they want you to hate these characters, so they write them as these thoughtless bully characters.
What? You're friends with this fat chick? Turn it off, fatty!
And then at the end of the game, they want you to be like, twist, they're not thoughtless bullies, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, they're not thoughtless bullies. And I was like, I feel like the story would have been better if we knew all along that they weren't thoughtless bullies.
Fatty!
And then at the end, we discover just how much they care. I think that would have been a better way to do the story than just, oh, they're thoughtless bullies until we decide that they're no longer thoughtless bullies. So that was kind of disappointing, but like I said, the four main characters are definitely a shining star in this game. The two bully characters are clearly just there to push the story along, and I feel like they could have done some better work there. Moving on to the music. The music in this game is great. They have Milk and Bone doing the soundtrack, and there isn't a single song in this game that I didn't enjoy. I enjoyed all the songs, all the musical moments. They did really well to kind of hit home and make those moments really feel good. My only gripe, and this is just a minor particular gripe for me, myself, not something that I feel like Dontnod or anybody should really take to heart and be like, oh darn, we messed that mark. I would say that a lot of the songs used in this game do not feel like 90s music. When I think of 90s music, I think of like the grunge rock scene. You've got your Nirvana, you've got your Soundgarden, you've got all these grungy kind of dirty sounding kind of rock bands going on. And a lot of the music in this game is very synth heavy, it's very light, and it fits the mood of the game wonderfully. And they're all great songs, but it does not at all make me feel like I'm in the 90s. The synth heavy music was really, really very much so 80s, and it hits the retro vibes. It makes you feel like you're back in time, but maybe back a little too far. Again, that's my only gripe. The songs are great. Milk and Bone is in charge of the soundtrack, and I think Milk and Bone do phenomenal work and have great music themselves. So the music is great. It fits the story well, and it sounds amazing. Like I said, my only gripe is it's not entirely time appropriate for the 90s. If the music is supposed to be reflective of the time and not the story, and that's a whole nother debate. But so from there, we're gonna go into kind of the aesthetics of it all. How does the game look? Dontnod spared no expense in that regards. It looks phenomenal. It looks way better than Double Exposure does, and it may not look better than Double Exposure in like a traditional graphical fidelity sense, but it looks like an art piece. And Dontnod has always leaned more into that, hey, this is an art piece kind of thing, rather than, hey, doesn't this look like real people running around? And so for that, I would say that it's a beautiful game. It looks great. The scenery looks very good. Any of the scenes that you're looking through your little camcorder also look really incredible. So that's really enjoyable. Overall, all in all, I would probably give this game about a 6.5 out of 10, which some people might think is a little low. Like I said, for me personally, the story was a bit slow, and there was not enough tension, not enough conflict to really get me into the story. The characters were good, with the exception of the bully characters, who just felt very contrived. But aside from that, everything else is really good. I don't see the game going downhill from here at all. I think if anything, Tape 2 will like skyrocket it into like maybe an 8 out of 10 territory. So like I said, right now we're sitting at a soft 6 out of 10 or 6.5 out of 10. It can only go up from here. I don't foresee Tape 2 being so bad that it's going to tank it down any lower than that. But like I said, we'll have to see, because I don't honestly know where that is going. I got a couple notes that I know I wanted to specifically touch base on in this video, so I will review my notes now and go over what other important talking pieces we have. Oh yes, a lot of the modern conversations feel empty.
But I think I'm ready to face whatever we dig up. Good. Just recently, I've been having all these flashbacks.
Me too. I've been remembering things ever since you called.
I have this bad feeling.
Like they're just blindly building to something, but the something that they're blindly building up to does not feel important enough for me to really care about it at all. And I say that not to be harsh, but like they sit down and they've got this mysterious box, and then they're like, oh, do you remember what happened? Oh, it was so traumatic that I shunned it out of my memory. Oh, me too. And then they like go down memory lane and they're trying to remember these things. And I don't know, it's just hard to explain, but it all feels very contrived. None of it feels like these people were legitimately traumatized and like blocked these memories out, because they're not overly emotional about the situation at all. And like I compare this a lot to Stephen King's It, because Stephen King's It's at least the most famous example of doing a story like this. And like you can tell, and Stephen King's It has the benefit of a cold open. It opens in the past, and the first thing you see is it devouring Georgie's arm or whatever. And depending on the version you watch, either devours his arm or he devours Georgie. Either way, this evil entity just ate a child within the first, 10 minutes? I don't know. You immediately, as the audience, know what's at stake here. Like, kids are going to get eaten by this monster if we do not stop him. We don't have that in Bloom and Rage. There is no inciting incident early on in the game to set the tone of the story. So, like, were they traumatized by a monster that ate Cat, or were they traumatized by some psychological thing that happened there? Or are they just embarrassed by a bunch of silly stuff that they did as kids and now they don't want to talk about it? The stakes are not well established early on in the story for these conversations to really land for me. Like I said, every time they're sitting in their booth and like, oh, I wish it would all just go away. I can't remember what's going on. I don't know. Do you know? Do you know? I don't remember. It just did not work for me. It felt very forced, very contrived, and not at all worthy of what I've experienced. Because so far, The only thing I've experienced in tape 1 has been some rather joyous memories of childhood shenanigans between these people in the summer of '95. What about that is something that you don't want to remember? And it doesn't cue me up. It doesn't cue up my curiosity to be like, oh, I can't wait to figure out what bad happens. It really kind of annoys me because it's like, I feel like I should already know or have an idea of what bad things could happen or might happen in order to make me care about these modern day conversations. And that's just not there. Not for a second do I believe that dontnod's choices aren't going to matter, but so far in tape 1, they've not seemed very consequential at all. It seems like you have a bit of a friendship system going, and so at the end of the game, it tells you where you stand with all the girls. She's your friend, she's your friend, she's your friend. That's what I got. I guess there's a way to make them not your friends, which is interesting. But so with that being said, it sounds like a lot of your consequences are gonna come to a head in tape 2, perhaps. So again, it's tough to fully review this game because I haven't played the whole game yet. Can't play the whole game until April 15th when it comes out. But based on what I'm experiencing right now, my choices do not seem very consequential, and there hasn't really seemed to be a very big story choice like, oh, I just did this thing, how the heck is that gonna affect things? I don't know. Like I said, I trust dontnod enough to know that they're not going to completely throw away all my life's choices, but I am a little bit worried about just how consequential these choices will be on the story itself. Especially, and I'll get into this with the more, what am I looking for? Spoiler review, but there's a lot of stuff that happens more towards the end of the game that I feel like I should have a choice on the matter, and I don't have a choice on the matter, and it kind of throws me for a loop. So we'll see what's going on there. Like I said, it's early on. We're still technically halfway through the story, so trying to understand what exactly is going on is a little tough right now. But I'm just going at it blind and judging based on the information that I have in front of me. The camera is a fun little feature. That's a very good, fun gameplay feature. I was really worried that it was just going to be this annoying thing that you have to deal with, but no, they do a good job with the camera feature, and so I do really enjoy kind of what they've got going on there. The puzzles are fine enough. I don't feel like there's very many of them. There was really only 2 of them that kind of stumped me for a while. But for the most part, no one comes to a story game expecting eye-opening gameplay, and this certainly isn't that. But it is, I guess, gameplay enough. All right, well, so that is what I have got. I appreciate you all for stopping by and listening to my thoughts on Bloomin' Rage Tape 1. We'll see what Tape 2 has to hold. So far, I'm sitting strong at a 6.5 out of 10. I feel like this is a game that still has a lot of very good potential. A bit slow at times. Some of the characters are a bit rough around the edges, but for the most part, it was a very much so enjoyed experience. And if you're a fan of these sorts of games, I think it's something that you will enjoy. I write my own novels. I have my own animation on YouTube and all sorts of fun stuff that I'm doing outside of here. If you want to stop by and try them out, please do so. I appreciate the support, and I appreciate you just coming by and hearing what I have to say, and I will catch you on the next one.